We're back.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Yes, happy Father's Day, everybody. I hope everyone is enjoying their Father's Day, whether it be relaxing or spending time with family, whatever you're out there doing.
Yeah.
Tinks is apparently shutting off the refrigerator today and freaking me out with comments.
I know. That freaked me out too.
All right, let's welcome everybody in over here. We have MelNetteLivingFreeZipCodeless over here.
Yeah. Oh.
And then we have Hitch Up in Tow. Hello and welcome. We have Tinks in the comments over here. We have Shanna Craft. Hello and welcome. I know we have Roy and Becky in here as well. Hello, hello.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it for right now. Anybody else that shows up, I will try to welcome them as they come in. I told my wife that a husband is like a fine wine. We just get better with age. The next day, she locked me in the cellar. The jokes are cracking me up over here. All right. So today's story is pretty long, you said, but
Yeah.
really good. I've been looking forward to this one. I don't know this story at all. So this is a new one for me. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you so much.
It was recommended by Tinks.
Yes, it was recommended by Tinks. And I think Tinks said up here somewhere, let me find that really quick. Here it is. Where I'm at right now, I could drive to Roseville Street where it all happened and be back before the show starts. So very close to where it all happened.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, let's get the story started, because I am interested in finding out all about this. So what actually happened on Bloody Sunday in Northern Ireland? You are now entering free. Is it Derry? Derry?
Derry? Yeah.
Derry. Oh, and Tinks. I am probably going to pronounce a lot of these words wrong, and I'm going to apologize now.
Me too.
There you go, Nettie.
Thank you. It's been 50 years to the day since the events of Bloody Sunday, and many questions are still unanswered.
Northern Ireland marks 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday Massacre. Hi, Linda Barker.
Mm-hmm.
Roy and Becky said, YouTube wouldn't let me back in. Oh, no. Background.
It was 1969 in Northern Ireland, and violence between the nationalists and the unionists was escalating, and the unionist government was losing control.
Now, just curious, because I know some countries don't allow guns. Do you know if Ireland allows guns?
I don't know.
Hey, Tinks, can you tell me in the comment section, in Ireland, are citizens allowed to have guns? I'm curious. To prevent this and to help assert the authority of the government, the British Army was deployed into Northern Ireland. Initially, they were welcomed by some Catholics who perceived them to be a neutral force. Okay, Tinks said no guns.
No guns. Yeah. At the time, the local police force, known as the Royal Ulster Constabulary, was considered to be biased against Catholics. It wouldn't be long, though, before opinions would quickly change against the army.
It's amazing to me that in other places, religion holds such authority in the government.
Yeah.
Hello, Paul Vines. Derry is the second largest city in Northern Ireland. In 1969, the city was very poor, and there was a huge inequality between nationalist and unionist. Tink said, I'm Catholic.
And Derry had a nationalist majority, but due to excessive gerrymandering and a number of discriminatory laws against Catholics, the city managed to maintain unionist leadership in all the council roles. The city was poor, housing conditions were terrible, and Catholics wanted better conditions.
Tink
Wow.
said, no Catholics allowed in the police back then.
Wow.
See, that's so strange to me on this side of things, like from coming
Yeah.
from the United States. Hey, Keisha. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for coming in. It's so strange from the United States looking into this story and knowing nothing about it. Honestly, I know nothing about this story or how this is going to play out. But for me, I've always thought of Ireland as being very Catholic, like Catholic Irish. It's always hand in hand from what that's just something I grew up thinking was
Yeah.
that most Irish were Catholic. So it was like
Yeah.
a hand in hand thing. So to hear that in Ireland, if you were Catholic, it was a bad thing is not
Yeah,
adding
it's
up in my brain
mind-boggling.
right
Yeah.
now. Hey, Ford man, thanks so much for sharing us out. I really appreciate that. All right. Is it my turn or your turn?
Your turn.
Okay. This is where the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, or the NICRA, comes into play. It was an organization set up as a non-partisan civil rights campaign and as an alternative to military operations.
Mm. In the early days, there were some unionists in the NICRA, but as Sinn Féin and the official IRAs, the Irish Republican Army, influence grew in the organization. It soon became primary, composed of nationalists.
Thank you, Roy and Becky, for saying to hit the thumbs up, please. I appreciate that. And Northern Ireland is claimed by the British. Gotcha. Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association calls everyone to march in Derry. Their aims were to defend the basic freedoms of all citizens, to protect the rights of the individual, to highlight all possible abuses of power, to demand guarantees for freedom of speech, assembly, and association, to inform the public of their lawful rights.
At this time, internment without trial had been introduced in Northern Ireland. This meant that anyone who was suspected of being in a terrorist organization could be arrested on the spot.
It was intended to completely wipe out the IRA, but a lot of innocent civilians were swooped up as part of the operation, which saw the British Army smash their way into some people's homes to arrest individuals. That's something I'll never understand is the like someone's home is their home. I'm never going to understand that in any country anywhere is when they just come into people's homes like that.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ray, I hope you get your concert tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Hope everything goes well.
The NICRA organized a number of marches against internment, even though marches were banned across Northern Ireland at this time due to the threat of violence. It was their march, which occurred on Sunday, January 30th, 1972, that would make headlines around the world.
The British Army. The authorities in Derry decided to allow the march to continue, but wanted the army to alter their route so that the march would remain in the Catholic part of the city.
At this time, there were parts of Derry that were considered no-go areas by the British Army. The main area was known as Free Derry.
You are now entering Free Derry. Road barricades had been erected to prevent military vehicles getting through, and members of the IRA carried weapons out in the open. Brian Cashinella, I hope I pronounced that correctly, a journalist who worked for the Times, said of the situation there.
It became very clear that Free Derry had become unacceptable to the British government in London and very embarrassing to the army in Northern Ireland. And they were going to do something about it to get rid of this anomaly, this no-go area.
Major General Robert Ford was a commander of land forces in Northern Ireland at the time and had promised that tougher measures would be introduced to deal with the lawlessness in Derry.
And these tougher measures came in the form of the 1st Battalion of the Parachute Regiment. The Parachute Regiment was an elite trained regiment of the British Army.
They had a reputation for being heavy-handed and were considered significantly more severe or tough than the regular British soldier. These soldiers were the ones deployed on the day of the march against internment on Sunday, January 30th, 1972. The Parachute Regiment.
And Major Ford suspected rioting on the day and deployed the parachute regiment to deal with the rioters. Many have suggested that this was a psychological move to show control of the region. Ivan Cooper, who was one of the organizers of the march on the day, described the paratroopers.
I also saw the paratroopers myself on a side street. They seemed to be hyped up. They were a different breed to what we had accustomed ourselves to in Derry. Tough, resolute, and hyped up.
Now, Ivan was a staunch pacifist and had met with the leader of the Provisional IRA before the march to confirm that they would not be armed men on that day.
Ivan Cooper. Ivan said, I told him that the march, if it wasn't going to be nonviolent, that unless I could receive assurances to that effect, that I would not be continuing to support it, and I would use my influence to have it called off.
I was contacted again and I was told that the Provisional IRA would give an undertaking that they would not be in the vicinity of the march on that Sunday.
It wasn't in the interest of the official IRA and the provisional IRA to launch an attack on this day, as they would have been blamed for any civilian casualties if they instigated violence. The march.
It was a sunny afternoon on Sunday, the 30th, January of 1972, when 10 to 15,000 people joined together to take part in the march. The march began in the housing estate of Cregan and then made its way down the Bogside, which is a largely Catholic area just outside of Derry's old city walls. A lot of people.
I was just going to say that. That is so many people. So many people. There was a very relaxed atmosphere in the air, and many people joined the march just to catch up with friends or have a chat. Meanwhile, the British Army was setting up barricades. No armed men there. Yeah, I didn't see a single armed man. I saw people with smiles on their face. Actually, let's go back just a second and look at that picture again. Because what I saw was people that with smiles, like simply, I mean, I
Yeah,
wish you guys could see my cursor as I moved through and pointed out smiles, but you can't. Um,
almost like a parade, where
yeah,
they're just gathering and marching down the street.
I mean, as I glance at this picture, I can see several people that have just smiles on their face. I know they're not there for like a party, but I mean, they're smiling and gathering together as a group. They're not there like, we're going to do this. They're not
Yeah.
angry. They don't look like an angry mob by any means. Hmm. All right, let's move on.
The Army's plan was to erect 26 subsequently numbered barricades, one on each street, that would cut off access to the city center by the protesters. Each barricade would consist of wooden knife rests, barbed wire, and concrete slabs.
Tink said people marching for jobs and housing.
Mm.
They would also have a number of British soldiers and 2 armored personnel carriers behind each barricade. The plan was for the army not to attack the protesters as long as they stayed in the permitted areas.
If any individuals tried to breach the barriers, then they were allowed to respond with rubber bullets, water cannons, and tear gas. There was also a plan to have a scoop up operation, which would see the rioters arrested once they had separated themselves from the people marching.
Have a blessed afternoon, Timmy Ray. Thanks for catching the replay of it. I appreciate it. The march continued down the bog side until they neared the city center and began to approach the army barriers. Because of the barriers, the organizers changed the route, intending the rally to happen at an area known as the Free Dairy Center or Free Dairy Corner. I don't know why my eyes read that as center. It looks so excessive.
Yeah, it does,
Like,
right?
so very excessive. When you, think of, I know this was back then and we have things now, riots now, but like these people don't have guns. They don't, the most that they are doing at this point, from what I could see in this picture, is maybe throwing some rocks. Like those rocks aren't going to hurt anybody that badly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. This seems very excessive.
Instead, the paratroopers had set up camp in a derelict building on the side of Barricade 14 and were hoping to outflank the protesters and launch an arrest operation.
I thought they were only supposed to arrest them if they went in a way they weren't
Beyond, yeah,
Yeah.
when they went beyond that area.
I thought that was the only time they were supposed to arrest them.
Yeah.
Instead of continuing straight, the lorry then turned right to head towards the Free Dairy Corner. Most of the crowd turned and followed the lorry, but some continued down William Street until they arrived at Barrier 14.
The crowd then jeered the soldiers and RUC members who manned the barriers, but gradually thinned until some youth remained.
The youths then began to throw stones at the troops, who responded with rubber bullets, water cannons, and tear gas. Exchanges like this were somewhat common at the time and rarely resulted in shots being fired by the soldiers. Well, I would hope not. Like, I think
Yeah.
water cannons and tear gas and rubber bullets is enough for some thrown stones.
They look young.
Yeah.
Some individuals in the crowd noticed the paratroopers in the Derlick building, and just before 4 p.m., they began throwing stones and bottles at them. In response, they opened fire with real bullets.
15-year-old Damien. Oh, I want to be able to say his name correctly. Damien Donnie.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm not doing his name justice. I'm going to just say 15-year-old Damien was throwing stones and was shot, but survived his injuries. John Johnson, 59, who was a passerby, was also shot twice and died of his injuries 4 months later. For throwing some stones and some bottles.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a shame.
shocked. He just said, wow. Yeah. I don't have words. Can you imagine the outrage here in the United States if, like,
Yeah.
oh, Tinks said yes, that was a great effort on. Thank you, Tinks. I tried.
The soldier who shot the two has claimed that the youths were throwing nail bombs, but no evidence of that has ever been found. A shot from a rifle was then fired at the soldiers, which hit a nearby drain pipe.
A shot from a rifle was fired at the soldiers? How? Who was shot? How did they get a rifle? Anybody
But
know
you
that?
had they had the IRAs, which is the Irish Republican. Trying I You had them, and then you had the paratroopers, and then
Oh, okay.
you had like different forces.
So it wasn't the kids on the street that had been throwing the rocks. They weren't shooting guns.
No.
No. Look at how little these kids are. Look at this kid right smack dab in the middle. He
Yeah.
looks like he's probably 9, if that.
Yeah.
And I mean smack dab in the middle of this picture. He's got like a sweater on with a stripe going across the top. No shots at any soldiers. This has been proved since then. Gotcha. These are some young kids. Never in a million
Yes.
years probably thought this stuff would happen that day. So your turn or
Yeah.
mine?
Your turn.
I always lose track. um, then at 1555, Colonial Derek Wilford requested permission for one para to deploy subunit through Barricade 14 to pick up yobos in William Street, Little James Street. Yobo is a derogatory term for a young person.
They got permission for the scoop up operation, and at 10 past 4, the Paras entered through Barrier 14. Meanwhile, 10 armed personnel carriers entered through Barrier 12.
Linda Barker said, "This happened a few years after the Kent State shootings. People were outraged." this whole thing is outrageous. These people weren't armed. They were throwing rocks. Like,
It's unbelievable.
this was the first time British troops had entered the Bogside part of Derry in daylight in 6 months, and they had been briefed that they may be walking into an IRA ambush.
A reporter for the Times, Brian Cashinella, then explained what happened next. Orders were being shouted at the back of me. You could hear the orders. Go, get on board. Get on board.
Roy and Becky says, I remember studying this in school.
Wow.
You did really good on that Cashinella name. Good job, Maddie.
Thank you.
And round the corner into William Street came these armored personnel carriers with lots of troops in the back. The back doors were open. The troops were very heavily armed with rifles.
For a
I
march.
don't get that. I'm so confused because it's not like they're walking into a situation where other people are armed and they need to be armed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm confused. Rubber bullets, yes. Tear gas, okay. Not understanding why they're going in with guns because they're not going after anyone else that has guns. Like, that's the I'm confused part. I don't know. And all of these men that had these guns, didn't they think this is wrong? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah, because there's three different forces there.
Yeah.
It's your turn, baby.
Oh, and I was standing next to General Robert Ford at the time, who was a new commander, and he was waving his swaggering stick, saying, Go on, the paras, go and get them. Go on, go and get them. From then on, it was mayhem. No one had guns that day, only soldiers. Yeah, that's the part I'm just totally blown away by.
The sight of the vehicles caused panic in the crowd, and while some civilians threw stones and bottles at the vehicles as they came into the bogside, the general reaction of the crowd was to run away.
I can imagine. I'd run. Run and hide.
Yeah.
Must have been terrifying to see. Some of the crowd tried to flee but ended up stuck in the courtyard of the Roseville Flats. Warning shots were fired to disperse the hostile, in quotations, hostile crowd. And then the Whiggery report stated that the soldiers came under fire while arresting civilians in the crowd. Again, under fire of what? Rocks?
Yeah.
The man's hands are on his head and you're pointing a gun at him and chasing him. Like, that looks safe? What the hell?
They responded by shooting into the crowd. John Dudley, 17, was shot in the back and died of his injuries. Father Edward Daly was beside Dudley when he was shot and attempted to bring him to get medical attention.
shooting into the crowd. Purpose there? Just to kill people? Like what's the purpose there? Maybe.
Poor thing. Yeah.
Video footage was captured showing Father Daly waving a bloody, stained handkerchief at the soldiers while trying to get Duddy, I guess, to safety. Oh, oh.
The rest of the armored vehicles ended up on Roseville Street and Ken's Walk. At Cow's Walk. At Cow's Walk, the soldiers encountered men standing on a rubber barricade in the middle of the road, facing them.
The soldiers claimed that these men were identified as gunmen and nail bombers and opened fire on them. 7 men were killed in this exchange. Jesus. If I remember right, the excuse was because of IRA. They had to lie to make it look good. Shooting one in the back is a coward's way. Sorry, but it is. I agree.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Shooting an unarmed person is a coward way too. Even if you shoot them in the face, like shoot them head on. If they're unarmed, it's a coward. It's a coward's act. Like if they're unarmed, why are you shooting them? I don't know.
William Nash was shot in the chest at the rubber barricade and killed. John Young and Michael McDade ran to help William, but were both shot in the face and killed. William Nash's father, Alexander, ran forward to help his son and was shot, but survived.
William Nash 19, John Young 17, and Michael McDade 20. The Whitgary report states that William's father was shot with a low-velocity round and claims that the wound was inflicted by a civilian firing haphazardly in the general direction of the soldiers without exposing himself enough to take proper aim.
Yeah.
Civilians that didn't have guns.
Trying to justify it.
Yeah.
Michael Kelly, Hugh Gilmore, Kevin McElhenney, and Patrick Dougherty also were killed by soldiers. 2 of them were shot in the back as they attempted to crawl away.
What? I'm trying to jump ahead. I really want to like what happened to the men that did this to them? Like,
Yeah.
like I pray that God took care of the men that did this to like to shoot someone in the back as they are crawling away. I don't care if you were only doing what your government told you to do. You had a choice to do it or not to do it. You could have turned that gun and shot at the ground instead of shooting at that crawling man, and you shot the crawling man. Like, disgusting.
Exactly.
Absolutely disgusting. Michael Kelly, 17. Hugh Gilmore, 17. Kevin McElhenney, 17. Patrick Patty Doherty, 31. By this stage, a group of civilians were trying to get away from the street where the shooting was taking place. Soldiers D, F, G, and H then confronted them in the central courtyard of Glenfada Park North. Roy and Becky Stravels said it should have been considered a war crime. Yes.
I agree. It was here a number of civilians were shot. James Ray, 22, Gerald McKinney, 35, and William McKinney, 26, were all killed, and a number of other civilians were injured. Gerald Dongery, 17, was shot in the stomach and mortally wounded.
James Ray, Gerald McKinney, William McKinney, and Gerald. That name is so hard to say. It's a tongue twister. What I am noticing, though, is there's like family. So that name was hard for me to say earlier. So I'm guessing that's another person that was related to the other one earlier. And then right here, you've got two McKinneys. I'm guessing they're related. So like throughout this, it's not like
Your
people
families.
are losing one person. They're losing multiple people in their family. I saw Patrick Doherty getting 2 shots in the back while laying face down on the ground. Oh, Tinks.
I'm sorry that you witnessed that.
So sorry, Tinks. I was 9 years old. Oh, Tinks. Wow. Across from the Roseville Flats, a man lay injured and was calling out for help. Bernard McGugan, 41, rushed over to his dad, waving a white handkerchief at the British soldiers. He was immediately shot in the head and killed. It is believed that soldier F fired the gun that killed McGugan. Again, why? If the man's waving a white handkerchief, waving a handkerchief at all, saying, I'm done, why? It was an ordered killing spree. I 100% believe that.
And all he did was go and help this person right here. And
so the
one that's already pronounced dead. So he's the one that's still alive is who got shot in the head, waving the white flag.
Because all he was trying to do was help somebody.
He was just trying to help them. Yeah.
Bernard Barney McGugan, 41.
Now, after the shooting had stopped, the mortally wounded Gerard Donaghy was brought to a nearby house where he was treated by a civilian doctor. He was then put into a car and driven to a nearby hospital.
The bravery of these people to go out and take that man to the hospital after everything that had happened, to go out there into the streets, like, so brave. On the way, the car was stopped by a British military checkpoint where the driver and the other passengers were arrested. The wounded Donnery was then brought by a soldier to an army first aid post where he was pronounced dead. They had no intention of arresting people. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Jeez. Gerald Donry.
It was then reported that nail four individual nail bombs were found on his body. The civilians who searched him, the soldiers who drove him to the army post, and the army medical officer all said that they did not see any bombs on him, which had led to the speculation that they were planted by the army.
Tink says they shot him again.
Wow.
To go through all of that, to just have, like, ah.
Yeah.
The civil inquiry concluded that Donry probably had the bombs in his possession but was not about to throw them. He was not shot because he had the bombs. He was shot in the back as he was trying to flee the soldiers. Do we, like, honestly, at that point, could he have even probably tried to flee the soldiers in the condition he was in? I mean, at that point, he was
Yeah.
probably just like, come on, just end it. Like, go ahead, shoot me. You're gonna do it. Like, that's how I would feel at that point. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. No witnesses, just no witness, no truth to be spilled out. Very true. Hey, Nomadic Rat Pack. Hello and welcome.
It was important for the British Army to find evidence that they had been fired upon and that they were defending themselves. Otherwise, it would look like they massacred defenseless civilians. The civil inquiry found that no proof of gunfire or nail bombs being thrown at them.
Yeah, I don't believe that there was nail bombs. I really don't. I
Yeah,
believe that's just their defense to defend what they had done.
yeah, trying to justify their actions.
Yeah. Tink said he wouldn't have known what a bomb was. I don't believe these young kids would have known at
Yeah,
all. None of those people at the very beginning of this, when the first picture was shown, none of those people looked like they were just in a like a, an. I stutter when I get really agitated or aggravated about a situation, so I apologize. This situation aggravates me to my core. In that very first picture, you just see people gathered together, standing up for something that they believe in. You don't see, they don't even look angry. Yes, they're gathered together to stand up for something they want or they believe in, but they don't look angry in any
yeah,
way. And that's what is bothering me to my core right now is those people did
yeah,
not look angry and this turned out the way that it did. It's frustrating. All involved in that army should have had war crimes brought against. I 100% agree.
yeah.
It was important for the British Army to find evidence that they had been fired upon. Did you read this one already?
Oh, yeah, this is the
Yeah.
one I read.
Yeah, you just read this one. Sorry. Oh. The soldiers had been shooting for 18 minutes, and 26 unarmed civilians had been shot. 14 of them died. No British soldiers were injured. That tells you something right there.
Yep.
Not a single British soldier was injured. Not a single one. aftermath.
In England, Bloody Sunday was discussed in the House of Commons, and the position of the army was that they had responded to attacks against them. Though all non military eyewitness accounts on the day mention how the soldiers had fired into an unarmed crowd.
Roy and Becky said, I remember crying while studying this. Both of us have roots in Ireland, and it broke my heart. Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. So many unarmed people. This just does not make sense.
Yeah.
If I cannot wrap my head around something or see some sort of why it might have happened, like, then I struggle with it. And I cannot see how so many people, not a single person would have tried to stop this or make this right when there were so many people. I can't understand this. The British government apologized a few years ago, but no soldiers were prosecuted. Take your apology and shove it where the sun don't shine.
Exactly.
People in the Republic of Ireland were absolutely furious with the events of Bloody Sunday. When the bodies of the victims were buried on the 2nd of February, there was a general strike in the Republic. An angry crowd also burnt down the British embassy in Dublin. Seems right.
It has been argued that Bloody Sunday was the first event to really kick off the troubles in Northern Ireland. There had been plenty of violence before, but this was different.
Violence, maybe, but death? Like, this was sheer death.
Yeah.
Massacre, like, I don't know. This was the mass killing of civilians by soldiers and in full view of the media. It fueled hostilities on the nationalist side and led to an uptick in the number of people joining nationalist paramilitary organizations. I would imagine this would lead to the people trying to arm themselves with guns. Like, I would think that would be something that they would end up trying to do to protect themselves because they were just gunned down. Like, I don't know.
The original IRA and the Sinn Féin were moving towards Marxism at this time, which paved the way for a surge in membership to the Provisional IRA among disaffected and angry young people.
The soldiers who were interviewed all had detailed recollections of being fired upon first, but most of these accounts have since been discredited. There have been accounts of one individual firing a revolver at the soldiers before civilians in the crowd ushered him away. Yeah, they all got their story straight before they were interviewed. That's what happened.
Yeah. The attitude towards the soldiers is very different in the two inquiries. The Whiggery inquiry states of the soldiers involved, those accustomed to listening to witnesses could not fail to be impressed by the demeanor of the soldiers of one para.
Roy and Becky said, apologies can't bring back those innocent lives lost.
Yeah.
Tink said, thank God we have peace on our streets now. And then that picture that we just showed, Tink said, that's my local church.
Oh, wow.
They gave their evidence with confidence and without hesitation or prevarication, and withstood a rigorous cross-examination without contradicting themselves or each other. With one or two exceptions, I accept that they were telling the truth as they remembered it.
Then, 30 years later, the Seville inquiry concluded. In the course of the report, we have considered in detail the accounts of the soldiers whose firing caused the casualties in the light of much other evidence.
We have concluded, for the reasons we give, that apart from Private T, many of these soldiers have knowingly put forward false accounts in order to seek to justify their firing. So why aren't we giving names?
Yeah.
Why are T? Like why? Let's go ahead and just give names. Linda, yes, it is very nice to have Tinks in the comments sharing his knowledge. I very much appreciate that, Tinks.
Thus, Seville came to the conclusion that the soldiers lost their self-control. It said, in the beliefs in this belief, soldiers reacted by losing their self-control and firing themselves, forgetting or ignoring their instructions and training, and failing to satisfy themselves that they had identified targets posing as a threat of causing death or serious injuries.
Our overall conclusion is that there was a serious and widespread loss of fire discipline among the soldiers of support company. Tinks, I have a question. Did they ever release any of the soldiers' names? Like, because I know throughout this story, we're kind of, it's being broke down as soldiers this or paracord this, or, like through the research that Nettie's been able to find, that's kind of how they're being named. So I'm just curious if over there, if it was ever like leaked out, or if people were ever able to identify who the soldiers were, if you guys kind of figured that out or knew that in any way, shape, or form, or if it was leaked out in any way. If you can let us know. Or if they've been really protected. I would imagine they were probably protected pretty well. Ah. Gotcha. We know. Let me click on it. There we go. We know. What's going on? There we go. We know some names, but not made public yet. Okay. I agree. They all should be brought to court and let the jury decide their fate. I don't know how you would live with yourself after something like that. I wonder if some of them did have a hard time living with themselves after that. This is because some of the families are still seeking justice 50 years later.
Yeah.
I would imagine retribution would be. I would imagine people were seeking their own justice.
Oh, yeah.
All right. martyrs, right?
Yeah. When the Seville report was released to the public on the 15th of June in 2010, thousands of people walked the same route in Derry that the marchers did 38 years earlier. They held photos of the individuals who lost their lives in the attacks, and copies of the Widgery report were ripped up.
Wow, that must have, the feeling that the people must have had walking that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I can only imagine.
Oh, wow.
It's true, Roy and Becky. Their families do deserve justice.
Mhm. The Saville report made a number of conclusions. The soldiers should have never been ordered to enter Bogside. Five British soldier, 5 British soldiers shot at civilians who they knew did not pose a threat. I think it was probably more than that, but
And 2 British soldiers shot at civilians in the belief that they might have identified gunmen, but without being certain that this was the case. The soldiers fired first after hearing warning shots fired by Lieutenant N, believing the IRA to be responding to them entering the Bogside.
no. So without checking to make sure there was even a gun, they just fired.
Was fired.
Soldier F. Families of the victims have continued to campaign for justice for their loved ones. In September of 2019, Soldier F was charged with 2 counts of murder in the case of James Ray and William McKinney, who were both shot in the back. He was also charged with 4 counts of attempted murder. There we go, one of the soldiers being charged. Wow. It's a heck of a mural.
Mm-hmm.
That is powerful. Wow.
As of writing, the case is still ongoing. Many unionists still voice their support for the paratroopers and, in particular, Soldier F.
Are we kidding? There are people that support this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted in those people. They're not people. They can't be people that support this crap. They're not human. On Tink said yes. They're
Mhm.
not people. I don't consider them people. They cannot be people. They can't be human and have a heart to support just killing
Yeah.
people. It's not okay. On the 2nd of July 2021, it was announced Soldier F would not face trial following a decision by the Public Prosecution Service PPS. What? Now I'm just going to get angry.
In a statement, the PPS said after careful consideration, the decision had been taken due to another recent court ruling which found evidence being relied upon in the prosecution of Soldier A and Soldier C for the killing of Joe McCann was inadmissible.
So because something wasn't in it, because something was inadmissible,
Mm-hmm.
the whole case just got thrown out.
Yeah.
Nice. Real nice. This was due to the circumstances in which the evidence was obtained. Oh my gosh, you think they would have done everything they could to make sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. The decision not to proceed with the case is now the subject of live judicial review proceedings following a legal challenge brought by the brother of one of the Bloody Sunday victims.
There has been a number of incidents where the flag of the parachute regiment has been flown in Northern Ireland as a sign of defiance against nationalists and support for the troops involved in Bloody Sunday.
Hmm. We need an intermission. We're almost done here.
That's a memorial.
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine this happening and then the people just getting away with it.
Yeah.
After the release of the inquiry, the British Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, apologized on behalf of the British government, saying,
I am deeply patriotic. I never want to believe anything bad about our country. I never want to call into question the behavior of our soldiers and our army, who I believe to be the finest in the world.
and I have seen for myself the very difficult and dangerous circumstances in which we ask our soldiers to serve. About to lose my mind. In which we ask our soldiers to serve. But the conclusion of this report are absolutely clear. There is no doubt, there is nothing. Ooh, that's going to be a hard one. Equivocal? I don't know. There are no ambiguities. What happened on Bloody Sunday was both unjustified and unjustifiable. It was wrong. Okay, I was about to lose it because that first sentence that says, and I have seen for myself the very difficult and dangerous circumstances in which we ask ourselves. I was like, what? Getting a rock thrown at
Yeah.
you is severely dangerous? Come on now. But the end of that is much better. Okay, I will accept what he said there at the end because sorry, but a rock being thrown at you is not that dangerous, sir. They look more angry there than they did in that very first picture. And they're not angry, they're just sad.
Yeah.
Heartbroken and sad. What actually happened on Bloody Sunday in North Ireland. That was a really good one. I did not learn about this at all. And if I did, I don't think that I learned in detail about it, if that makes sense. I may have picked a piece here and there, but I don't think that I learned in that much detail about this. And I'm thankful, Tinks, for you suggesting
Yeah.
this and Nettie for you doing all that research on it. Although this makes me very angry, and I will be thinking about this and doing more research on it now.
And that's what's good about your live stream, BB, is bringing the awareness. And that's what we're doing because I myself, I didn't remember this story. Al did when he saw what I was researching. And like you were saying, as far as you starting to stutter because of getting, you know, not nervous, but just getting worked up I
Mhm.
go through the same thing in the research. It's really touching because I feel what they're feeling when I'm researching it and to get it put together. So it's totally it was great, Tinks, that you told us about it, because I'm glad that we're bringing out the awareness of this, because it needed to be told, what happened, and hopefully they will get some justice out of it, because they're still trying.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's still being addressed, that it's not just like done and forgotten and over with. I like that,
Yeah,
it's still
yeah,
being addressed today. I do think that it's
yeah.
good that, the British government apologized, but I don't think that fixes anything. They need to be
No,
able to,
yeah,
someone needs to be held accountable for this. Like, something needs to be done. Some kind
definitely.
of accountability needs to happen. Um,
And
but I,
with the media being there was definitely a lot of photos that I could have attached, but they were just so graphic because they had everything. You can go out there and you can see these poor people getting shot and the effects of it. So it really touched me, doing this.
well, I appreciate it. I know that these stories can be hard to research, but I'm thankful that you do the research on these, because, like I said, I wouldn't know anything about this if we didn't cover this story. I really wouldn't know
Yeah,
anything about it. And I think there's probably some other people. I know Roy and Becky said that they, covered this in high school. I think Keisha was in here earlier and was kind of
yeah,
shocked by some of the facts. So I know that a lot of us are learning as we go on and do these. So um, I think these are really good ones. And yeah, Keisha's still in here and said I wouldn't either. I agree. So
yeah,
yeah, I definitely. I will leave a few flowers at the memorial next Sunday. Tinks, yes, please do. I would
mm-hmm.
appreciate that. This definitely is a story that's going to stick with me. Um, I
Same
just
here.
I
Yeah,
can't grasp what happened there. This is going to stick with me. But thank you all so much for joining us this Sunday and sticking with us through the story and learning with
yeah.
us. I appreciate it. Well, wishing you all much kindness and much love. I hope you have a great
Yeah.
week.
And we're sending love your way. Have a good Father's Day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.